Hey everyone, this is basketball loving Dr. NBA. Today I've got quite the interesting story to tell. If one doesn't possess top skill globally and strength with muscles that can't beat size difference, then it would be impossible to survive in the NBA. Especially players with fast speed and the ability to dunk and those sides of blocking those abilities. It almost looks like beasts fighting each other. On that note, today I'll be talking about a player that's quite violent, and that player's name is Kevin Garnett, known as the King of the Wolves. Once his teeth are sunk in, he never lets go. His will to keep the ball and his toughness was not towards only the big men, but also to players that were weaker than he was, making them freeze. These ferocious acts to many prospects out there was enough to make him their role model. All these marks he has left in the NBA for 21 years. We will see how amazing they were in this video. 1979, born in a city called Greenville, in South Carolina, US. Kevin Garnett was abandoned by his father at a young age and raised by his mother alone. Unfortunately, he grew up not making too big of a mess. And as the NBA started to get popular quickly in the 80s, a young middle school Garnett fell for basketball and made a goal to succeed through that. His height when he enrolled in high school was over 6'7", and it wasn't his size that was the only advantage, but also his basketball IQ, and he tore through the high school league. And through his consistent performance, in grade 12, he was the best player in South Carolina, and was known to be the best potential prospect in high school, and attended the Nike camp as well. The head coach for the team he was in at that time was disappointed seeing a 6'10", 200-pound Garnett, showing average dunks with a skinny physique. And right away he told Garnett to stop playing like a girl and start playing like a beast, and gave that kind of advice, and from this Garnett was motivated. Whenever he dunked from there on, he started pounding his chest screaming, and getting that kind of aggressive specialty, he upgraded to another level. But in the end of his 12th year, he would experience a career-ending event. There was a school fight with black students beating up white students, and he was thought to be the suspect, and was taken to the police station. He did get set free, because he was just watching the fight. Because of that case, many students picked on Garnett, and he couldn't handle it. So he eventually moved to a different school in Illinois, and continued his career there. And right after that, he would have an average of 25.2 points, 17.9 rebounds, and 6.5 blocks, showing great performance, and led his team to 28 wins and 2 losses. And at the same time, was known as one of the top prospects, getting a lot of attention in the media. Many people wondered if he would go to university or go straight to the NBA. And Garnett wasn't the best at studying, and for the SAT test for enrolling in university, he wasn't sure if he could get a high enough grade to get a scholarship. So, he entered the 1995 NBA draft, but he wasn't the verified prospect of the NBA, and there hasn't been a player straight out of high school to enter the NBA in 20 years. It was pretty much a gamble for Garnett, but surprisingly, he was successfully picked 5th overall, and he joined the Wolfgang, Minnesota Timberwolves, starting his first steps in that team. His height was 6'11" and was great as a big man, but his weight was only 220 pounds and was known to have a weak physique, so in the beginning of the season Garnett was not given many opportunities. Hearing this, the most frustrated person was the GM of the Timberwolves, and with the team doing terrible, the person he stuck his neck for, Garnett, being treated as nothing, he replaced the head coach and the original key players of the team, and picked members that would help Garnett succeed. In this process, the new head coach that was picked was Philip Saunders, and he admired Garnett as a player, and made team tactics that would help the potential of young Garnett to shine. If his strength and weight was not enough to push his way to the paint zone, then they would take the opponent's centers out. Compared to others, his steady and fast dribbling, and his precise mid-range shot from a high area, plus his post-up with his back turned, fadeaway shot, was enough to break the expectation of a high school baller. And his basketball IQ was on point, and he was perfect at timing the movement for receiving the pass in the middle. And his decision making on where the rebound was not all he was good at. His timing when opponents were on offense for blocking took their soul out. And so, Garnett was the most promising prospect out there. Following that, he became a key player on the team, and he did not shy down from veterans, yet pushed back even harder, showing heart that's not like a rookie, and because so, he brought the tension up for his teammates. And with this drive, they entered the second season, where Stephen Marbury, a helper of Garnett, was brought in and became even stronger. The two players' combo play toured through the NBA, and Minnesota Timberwolves, who ranked 13th in the Western Conference last year, was suddenly in 6th place, and for the first time since they became a team in 1989, made the playoffs to compete for the championship. And even though they fell against a legend in the first round by losing 3-1, kneeling before them, Minnesota had Garnett, who was already being known as an all-star player that grew amazingly, so it was also a win. And right away, giving Garnett the responsibility of the team's future, signed a 6-year, $126 million huge contract. And through that, in his third year, he showed greater performance with more points put up, showing that he was worth the contract. But the more time went by, the more the team was falling apart. And the reason was because of money. To go to the past briefly, there was a rivalry matchup in the NBA between Magic Johnson and Larry Bird in the 80s. And in the 90s, Michael Jordan was the main popularity. And at the same time, profit for teams increased immensely, and superstar contracts started to rise as well. But the problem was, in this atmosphere, young players started wanting larger amounts of money in their contracts, almost as if a trend was emerging. Now there are salary caps and other reasons why money is saved to some extent. But at this time, there was no such thing, and there was no limit, so the money range was going back and forth. As a result, Garnett had signed a huge contract. From the Minnesota's point of view, the contract signed with Garnett's agent was a bit too much for them. And just finishing his second year, Stephen Marbury was demanding the same amount of money as Garnett. The team went through quite a hard time because so. In this mess, fortunately there were systems that put a cap on salary based on experience, so it was somewhat figured out. But feeling like he was not treated as an equal to Garnett, an upset Stephen Marbury would eventually leave to another team. And Garnett, now fighting alone in the first round, would be unfortunately eliminated. And there were more reasons why the team was falling apart through money. In fact, Minnesota was looking for young prospects with a high BQ that could be affordable, so they signed a cheap contract with a rookie player named Joe Smith. To explain this briefly, the team had signed him every year for 3 years with an unbelievably low amount, and then used a special clause for a bigger contract, filling in the amount that was needed in the before contracts. So the total annual salary of a team's player was not allowed to exceed a certain amount. It was a trick to protect the salary cap system. With Garnett taking half the salary cap himself, there was not a lot left to provide for the other team members, so they had to use this kind of method. But not even 2 years in, Minnesota was caught by the NBA and received a huge penalty because so. They lost their first round draft pick till 2004 and could not bring any more talent in the group. So eventually, due to all these money problems and whatnot, without much help, Garnett had to lead the team by himself. And with the superstar level of skill he had, in the 02-03 season, he led the team to barely make the playoffs. But in the first round, he would face the legendary duo of Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal from the LA Lakers, and because so, lost in the first round for 7 years in a row, making Garnett that kind of player. Kevin Garnett, 9 years since he's debuted, heading into the 03-04 season, Minnesota being known as the worst in the playoffs. In order to get rid of that image, brought in 2 veteran players to help Garnett and the team. And so, the head coach could make various new plays, and a less tired Kevin Garnett would have an average of 24.2 points, showing the best he has shown so far, using his wide sight and passing ability to use various different kinds of offensive tactics. And building his body, since he was a rookie, his physique now could not be considered to be scrawny anymore. It was quite thick. Becoming stronger in the paint zone now, he became the rebound leader with an average of 13.9 rebounds. And not just that, with his quick hands and solid palms, he had blocked and stealed many of the opponent's balls. Just because 2 players had joined, Garnett's potential had exploded, and for the first time in history the team had become first in the Western Conference and achieved a great result. Getting recognized for this, he had gotten the title of the MVP. His performance kept going in the playoffs as well. In the first round against the Nuggets, they blew past them, winning 4-1, breaking the curse they had. And heading into his first second round against the Sacramento Kings, his performance kept shining. He had over 30 points twice and was destroying the opponent's defense. And after a hard battle, won 4-3 against the Kings, making it to the third round for the first time. Being in a situation where if they win the Western Conference, they would head to the finals. They would meet the team that cursed them for so many years, Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal leading the LA Lakers. Back then, because they had a weak team strategy, they were cut off right away. But now, ready to show that's not the case, they stood tall in front of the 2 legends and was ready to engage. Kevin Garnett for 2 games was tied 1-1 and was on par with the championship team Lakers. But one out of the 2 veterans that came to the team that was playing as point guard had gotten injured. And to make things worse, the backup point guard as well had gotten injured. As a result, there were no players left that could pass the ball around and control the play, and Garnett had no choice but to fill in that role. And the team was left all tangled up, Garnett and the Timberwolves doing whatever they could, but eventually, not being able to revenge their curse, would fall short again against the LA Lakers. Garnett, not satisfied with the fact they lost because of injuries, had entered the 04-05 season with the hope of winning the championship once again. But the 2 veterans had problems with the team about their salary, and the atmosphere in the team would be dark again because of money. And because so, the offense and defense in Minnesota was a total mess, and as a result, failed in making the playoffs, showing poor results. The 2 veterans after the season ended left to different teams right away. Plus, the head coach that believed in Garnett when he was a bench member and saw a superstar in him, Philip Saunders, was fired because of the poor results. And Garnett was left with nowhere to lean on, and the team was falling into complete darkness. And seeing how greed for money ruined the team, and no matter how good he did, he couldn't do it on his own. He realized that straight to the bones, enough to almost burst in tears in an interview. But aside from that, Garnett played 2 more years for the team with responsibility till the 06-07 season, having over a 20-point average and getting the rebound leader 4 times in a row, playing his hardest in every game. But the team's record was not even close to making the playoffs, yet they were at the bottom of the food chain, and Garnett was now at the age of 31 years old. Kevin Garnett's body and heart had been all tired out, and as a result, the Minnesota Timberwolves that he played for 12 years, he had finally decided to leave.